Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis, beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. This Shabbos is the first Shabbos of the 3 weeks, Parshas Pinchas. So we have to understand what relevance, what message is there in this week's Parsha in relation to the 3 weeks in particular. The Rebbe, during the 3 weeks, would always connect the Parshas of the 3 weeks to the theme of the 3 weeks to focus on the particular message during the 3 weeks related to the 3 weeks and how this could impact and the relevance in becoming better. As usual, during this time when the war is going on in Eretz Yisrael, we're adding tzedakah, gedel tzedakah shemakareves esagula, and Mashiach should come now. I'm going to say a prayer this time. We always say a pasuk, an union of tefillah, and this time I'm going to say from Kapitel Pei Aleph in Tehillim, pasuk Vav. Eidos be'hoisef samoi, b'tzei Yisrael Mitzrayim, svas le'adaiti eshmo. He placed it as a testimony in Yosef, where over here is he hoisef. When he went forth over the land of Egypt, I heard a language I did not know. So one interpretation is it's talking about Yosef HaTzadik. And over here Hashem added a hey to his name. And the Gemara in Soita, in 2 places, or rather in Menachos, 1 second, in Soita, it says, why did Hashem add a letter to Hashem's name? In one place it says, Yosef shekiddushim shemayim b'seiser zocha v'yisifu le'ois achas mishmoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Since he made a kiddush Hashem, he sanctified Hashem's name hiddenly, which means when Potiphara's wife tried to seduce him and he refused, vayimoin, so it was a kiddush Hashem. It showed that a Jew has values and integrity, red lines that he would never cross, immorality, to commit adultery, etc. So therefore he was Mekadosh Shem Shamayim, and therefore Hashem rested on him and gave him a ois hey. He added to his name. That's what it says in one place in Menachos, and in the other place it speaks about that he didn't know the languages, and therefore the Eibishter Malach Gabriel came to him and added Oisei to his name, and with that Oisei he was able to learn all the languages, because the rule was that only someone who knew all the languages was able to become a Mishnah Lamelech. At that time when Yosef was in prison, he didn't know all the languages. Gabriel, the Malach, came and taught him all the languages with the power of the Oisei of Hashem. Now, what I'm going to speak about today is based on a Sikha of the Rebbe. It's printed in Lekutei Sichas Chelik Yud Ches, page 483, which really comes from a Farbrengen of the Rebbe, Parshas Pinchas, Tovshin Yud, before the Rebbe officially accepted the Nesius. This was from the first talks that the Rebbe gave. And if you look up in the Teres Menachem, there's more to it. So that's my basis for what I'm going to talk about today. But first, we'll ask a Klotz Kasha, an obvious question. And the truth is, I didn't see anybody speaking about it. And what I'm going to say is a lot of it is Yesh Leimar, based upon other things that I learned. I hope it's correct. So the Klotz Kasha is, in this week's Pasha, when it says Pinchas with a Yud, a small Yud. And the obvious question is, number one, why the small Yud? What do we learn out from the small Yud? And B, why does we say it over here in this week's Parsha? The name Pinchas was already mentioned before, so why over here is the Yud small? So, the Rebbe doesn't ask this question over there in that Sikha, but what the Rebbe does say is as follows. There's 2 dayas, there's 2 opinions about the name Pinchas, whether it has a Yud or it doesn't have a Yud. And there's 2 days. According to one opinion is B'chol mokim nichtev chiser v'rak pam achas molei. All over it's written without the yud, and only one place is it written with the yud. Oy sheb'chol mokim nichtev molei v'rak pam achas nichtev chiser. Or every other place it's written with the yud, and only one place it's missing a yud. But in Parshas Pinchas, according to everyone, it's molei. So maybe right there, that's one of the reasons why this Pinchas is spelt with the small yud, to point out the controversy that this is the yud where everyone agrees that there's a yud. Okay, maybe you could say that. But now let's go to the Sikha. The Rebbe points out, and he connects this yud that's added to the word Pinchas with a Zoyar. There's a Zoyar in Parshas Pinchas, which says as follows. The Zohar says that a hay was added to Yosef, the Noter Gamaya Mahai. Everyone who guards themselves and is careful from such a thing, he's referring to illicit relations, immorality in the area of relations. The Rebbe talks about Shmiras Habris. So the Noter Gamaya Mahai, because he guarded himself in this area, is Kashaba B'Shchinta. He's bound up and connected to the Shechina. V'Oched Ba'hu Eidus. And he becomes connected to this testimony. And Hey goes on the Shechina. Hey goes on Malchus. So according to this, it will be the lower Hey, the second Hey. And the Zohar over there, when it speaks about that Hashem added a Hey to Yosef, Yehoy Yosef, it says, Itisif Isfis Bepinchas al de Koiba, Itoisef Bepinchas al de Koiba. Sorry, Itoisef Bepinchas al de Koni Bahai. And so too, a Yud was added to Pinchas because he was zealous over the same matter. He was zealous over the same matter that he saw the desecration and the intermarriage, assimilation between the Yidden, Zimri, and the Moabite women that was going on, and the immorality that was connected to this, and that there was a plague. Pinchas saw how everything was desecrated, and therefore he did what he did. So because he was zealous in this area, a letter of Hashem's name was added. So the Zohar connects Yosef and Pinchas, that both were careful in this area. Yosef did not have relations with a non-Jew, and he made a Kiddush Hashem, and therefore the hay was added. And Pinchas also understood the division that has to remain, the holiness of the Jew. Shmiras Habris, the Rebbe says by both, the concept. So therefore, a letter of Hashem's name was added to Pinchas. Now, what I believe to be is the Rebbe's Chiddush over here, is that the Rebbe connects this with a Rashi in this week's Parsha, which is connected to a Pasuk in Tehillim, which is phenomenal, which I think, don't quote me on this, I think it's the Rebbe that makes the connection, according to what I understand. And that's the Pasuk in Kapitel Chavov, Pasuk Hey. The Rebbe brings down the Rashi over there, where we make a census, we're counting the Yidden in this week's Parsha, and it says, Reuven b'chol Yisrael b'nei Reuven, Chanoich mishpachas hachanoichi, lefalo mishpachas hapalui. Rashi on the words, mishpachas hachanoichi, Rashi says, Lefi shoyo umis mevazen loisom, since the nations humiliate the Israelites, v'oimrim Ma elu misyachsen al shifteihem. Why do these trace their ancestry by their tribes? Svuremeim shleisholto hamitzriyim bi'imaiseyem. Do they think that the Egyptians did not have their way with their mothers? Like forbidden relations against their will. Im begufa mayim moishlim. If the Egyptians ruled over the Israelites' bodies, because the Yidden were slaves in Egypt, avodim ayinu, kal v'choyme ben sheseyem. How much more is it true that they ruled over their wives? Lefichach hitel HaKadosh Baruch Hu shmoi aleim. This is why the Eibishter placed his name upon them. Hey mitzad zeh, the letter Hey on one side of the family name, the Yud mitzad zeh, and the Yud on the other side. Loimar, which means Chanoich becomes Hachanoichi, Hachanoichi, with a Hey at the beginning of the name, Mishpachas, not Chanoich, but Hachanoichi, a Hey, the Hey of Hashem's name, at the beginning of the word, and the Yud, Hachanoichi, at the end of the name. That's the Yud K of Hashem. Wow. Loimar, to say, Meidani Aleim, I bear witness on the Jews. Shem b'nei avisayim, that they are children of their fathers. V'zeu shemaferish l'idei David, and this is what the David said. This is another pasuk in Tilim. Shiftei ya eidos li Yisrael, tribes of Hashem, a testimony for Israel. The names of the tribe, Hachinechi, proves that they are tribes of Hashem. Hashem gives witness. Hashem Hazeh, this name, Yud Kei, Hashem's name, made Aleim, testifies about them, L'Shivteim, regarding the tribes. Wow. So this is so phenomenal on so many levels. First of all, we're talking about a story that took place over 3,000 years ago. And you'd think, obviously, if the Jews were slaves, so then the masters did what they wanted with the wives of the slaves. Here we see the Torah says clearly, Hashem is the witness. There's nothing to speculate. There's nothing to suspect. Hashem is giving witness. Everything's A-okay. Everything's kosher. Imagine you called somebody because you want to find that information about a shidduch. Could you imagine if you call Hashem to find out about a shidduch, and Hashem says, A-okay, kosher, fantastic. So this is what happens over here. Hashem himself is bearing witness, and therefore they can be called Shiftei Yudkei. My name is upon them, that everything's kosher, it's great. So that's number one. Phenomenal. And it goes against what a person would think about if he reads a history book about slaves of the Babylonians or the Romans, or how they treated the slaves throughout history, whatever. And over here, Hashem himself gives testimony, witness, that no, it's all kosher. Number one. Number two, this is connected to the parsha. Why? Because since the sin, what happened before at the end of Parshas Bolak, was about intermarriage, relations of Jews with non-Jews, so you could think that how much of the percentage of the Jewish nation was involved in that sin comes along this Rashi and lets us know here, after that story, that there's still kosher v'yasher. Hashem is still bearing witness. Shiftei kah. Most of the Jews, by large majority, were not involved in the sin. A very small minority were involved. It caused the plague. We're not going to get into the details now. But this is proof positive. And that's why they counted again. And that's why this is what the pasuk is letting us know over here, according to Rashi, that nothing changed in relation to the kedusha, or the holiness and the sanctity of the Jewish nation. And that's why it's important for us to let us know this right now over here. There were people that stepped out of line, but it doesn't reflect the majority. Now, the Rebbe connects that Zoyar, which says that Pinchas and Yosef were both careful in that way. And he connects it with this Rashi over here, that therefore Rashi over here is making this statement concerning the majority of Klal Yisrael, because the majority of Klal Yisrael was careful in that way also. Now we still have a lot of questions. What does it mean, Dafka the Yudke, which we will attempt to say a word. But first I think I will speak directly the Hira, which is Negeh for the 3 weeks. The Hira, which is Negeh for the 3 weeks, is I'm a Jew and I'm proud. And then the question is, what does it mean you're a Jew? What does it mean that you're Jewish? What does it mean to be a Jew? Good question. And it's not elaborated all over that a person should get this idea. So obviously, when you learn Tanya, we get the idea very simply, as we spoke many times, that a Jew is one who is bound up with Hashem and loyal to Hashem. You're essentially bound up. A Yid does not want to separate himself from Hashem. That is a Jew. What gives him this ability, i.e., as we spoke many times, to be absolutely selfless and to be obsessed with Hashem, Hashem, Hashem? That's because in him there's something which is higher than him. There's something which is beyond creation, a part of Hashem himself, a chelik elika mimal mamish. Okay. But now, practically speaking, what is one of the manifestations of the fact that we're Jewish? Practically. So here we have Hayom Yom. I think offhand it's in Menachem Ov. I'm not sure if it's Chav Gimel Menachem Ov, Chav Daled, Chav Aleph, I forgot, Chav Beis, where the Friedrich Rebbe says when his father taught him the words in Tanya, Chelik Elika Mimal Mamish, his father said that the Jewish soul causes a fusion of the Mimal, the higher than high, and the Mamish, the Mamish, the mundane, the tangible, the palpable. And what does that mean? Only the Jew could permeate the physical itself becomes holy. So let's rewind for a second and then we'll take it further. In other words, as we spoke many times, what is a Jew? Ato v'chartonu mikol ha'amim ahavteisonu ratzisabonu v'rei mamtonu. He elevated us. But what does it mean that he elevated us? He elevated us, as it also says in the Pasuk, that he wanted a nation which is Va'atem tiuli mamleches koyanim v'goy kodesh. And what is the meaning of a goy kodesh? The purpose and the meaning of a Jew is not that we're a mensch, we're a very refined person with refined character traits, who's ethical and moral. That goes without saying. We are a whole nother level, next level. And what's the next level? The fusion of the physical and the spiritual. Which only in Yiddishkeit, as we spoke many, many times in the past, is there this concept that you can make a bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'seisef v'tzivonu al achilas matzah, and take a piece of hard cardboard matzah and go and eat it and chew it and swallow it. And we're saying this is a mitzvah, this connects us with God, and through this we're being holy because we took something physical and we transformed it to Hashem and we become united with Hashem. Speaking about Shmiras Habris, we all know that when Avram went to make an oath, he said, Simno yotcha tachas yerechi, put your hand under my thigh, because that was the only object of holiness. What does holy mean? Holy means the marriage of heaven and earth, the fusion of heaven and earth, the unification of heaven and earth, the harmony of heaven and earth, of the spiritual and the physical, and the physical and the spiritual, even though according to all rules of science, of call it whatever you want, according to all the Gedarim of say the Shtalshalis, what's physical has to be physical, what's spiritual has to be spiritual, and it's only because of the power of Atzmus and Mahus, of the essence of Hashem, they're able to fuse both. What I'm saying now is really, in a kernel, in a nutshell, hours and hours of Chassidus, which covers many, many sugis, different areas of Chassidus, Shvuas, Matan Torah, Bris, many, many things. Mitzvahs Maisius. So this is what makes a Jew different. And therefore, especially when it comes to the idea of marriage, in contrast to the Christians, I don't even know what they're about, abstinence. And Yiddishkeit is punkt verkehrt. A kohen has to be married. The whole idea is to take the physical and make it spiritual. And make the spiritual physical and the physical spiritual till we don't find the difference between one and the other. They become one. As the famous Rashi in Shir Hashirim, Kol HaSvarim Kodesh, but Shir Hashirim is Kochek Kochim, because that represents the ultimate idea. In the act of marriage, we have the highest level of Elokus, but only if it's based on the right foundations. And this is also something the Rebbe says in the Sikha there, I should have mentioned before, that the Yud and the K of Hashem's name in relation to this idea of Shmiras HaBris is, as was well known really, but it says in the Gemara that there's a male and a female, and the pasuk says that the female is called Isha, Isha, Kimi Ish L'Kacha. The female, the wife, is called Isha, and the male is called Ish. And the Gemara explains that what this means over here is that really, what's the difference between Ish and Isha? The Yud and the K. And what does that represent? If we take out the Yud of Ish and we take out the Hey of Isha, we have two fires. Fires which will cause havoc, which will burn, destroy. If you take out the Shekhinah from the Ish and the Isha, you take out the Yud and the K, then there won't be peace. It's only when you bring Hashem into the relationship and it's based on the right foundations, Shechinei Moem, that causes peace. Because the truth is, one is the opposite from the other. And the fusion of two opposites can only be when there's a higher source which unites them. So the Rebbe in the Sikha says that this is one general connection between this word that Pinchas and Yosef were added a Yud and a K, and it's both, and that's what the Zohar says, and it's both in relation to this concept of the dividing line in Shmiras HaBris, in relations, that the relations are done properly, and then the Shechinah is Imayim. Why is it that was the Yud and the K that the Zohar says over there? It's connected with the beer, what the Gemara says, that Yud and K represents Ish and Isha. When it's done properly, the relations between male and female, that represents Yud and K. That's what the Rebbe says in the Sikha over there. Let's get back to the lesson. It's already getting late. So one lesson we're taking over here, and it's very relevant to our time in the 3 weeks, is there's the Chiyuv and there's the Shlila. The Chiyuv, we know that it says that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam, baseless hatred. But what that means is you don't respect a Jew, you don't honor a Jew, you don't cherish a Jew, and you don't love a Jew. Avas Chinam. If you walked around with this thought in your head, yo, you see that Jew over there? It's a Shifte Yudke. Der Eibishter allein hat gesagt, das auf jeden Mensch, as is kosher v'yosher. Can't get better than that. The Eibishter himself gave witness and said he's awesome. He's amazing. He's a star. That's Avas Chinam. Thinking about that he has a neshama, and the Eibishter bore witness on that person. No problem. What's the shlila? The shlila is when we debase, demoralize, diminish another Jew. And we separate the lines, and we don't realize. We don't have the Jewish pride, and we assimilate. That means we're destroying the Jewishness. We're saying, what about the rest of the world? And you forget about your brothers and sisters. You're denying that spark that's in you that unites you with every other Jew. And this could be the number one problem for Pirat Alvavas, the number one problem of where we have all these ideas that is so shameful. So let's talk about this week. Bibi Netanyahu gave a speech in Congress. And he came out loud and clear, and he's saying that Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Jews because the Eibishter gave it to Avram and Yitzchak and Yaakov. We're the colonizers. So that's it. He went straight to what the Rebbe said we should say all along the first Rashi in the Torah. Nothing with Balfour Declaration, nothing with 1948. It's because we've always been there because the Eibishter gave it to us in the Bible. That's the message of the 3 weeks. We're a Jew. We have a history. Hashem chose us, and He gave us the land. And Dafka, when you go with such approach, that will bring the Geula. That will bring the salvation. That will bring the hope and to save the situation. So that's the connection. The Shlila and the Chiyuv. The Shlila is Amaisa Mitzimri. The Shlila means trying to suck up. That we should be like the rest of the world. We have to lower our standard, lower our integrity, lower our purity to mix and mingle. And we know that this never worked, and whenever there was such an approach, it only caused suicide for the Jewish nation. It brought cruelty, it brought destruction, etc. And if we go the other way around, when you go like a Pinchas, you connect with Hashem, and you state loudly and clearly who you are, a Ben Avram, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, then you matzliach. I just want to add one more thing in connection to this word of Yud K, and connecting it to the idea of holiness in the physical, and that this is the uniqueness of a Jew, and only because we're connected with the Etzem of Hashem, and the essence of Hashem has no limitations, and therefore it could cause the unification of the physical and spiritual. Maybe you could also connect it with the Gemara. I think this Gemara is in Menachos, Daf Chav Tes Amud Beis, where it says that there's two Eilim Shabara Kadosh Baruch Hu, the two worlds that the Eibishter created, Echad Behei, the Echad B'Yud, one with a Hey and one with a Yud. And then the Gemara brings an ayah from this, Eila told the Shemayim v'Ha'aretz, Behei Baram, which the literal translation means as He created them. Al tikra Behei Baram Ela Behei Baram. Not translate Behei Baram as He created them, but Behei with the letter Hey, Baram He created. And over there it refers to Elam Hazeh. So Elam Hazeh is created with a Hey, and Elam Haba is with a Yud. So the idea of Yosef adding a Hey to his name and Pinchas a Yud to his name represents again the idea of the marriage of Elam Hazeh and Elam Haba. A Yid has to connect the Yud and the K, and only a Yid has the power to do that. And therefore we have the laws of Taras HaMishpacha, again, the idea that when a person lives his physical life, that he brings Hashem into it, that's when he fulfills the shlichus of Lasis Leis Baruch Dira Bitachtoinim. You bring Elam Haba in Elam Hazeh, and you elevate Elam Hazeh to Elam Haba. Elam Haba doesn't mean the world to come, literally, but Elam Haba means a consciousness. We're always living in Welt, Hechafa Welt. We're always part of the world, but apart, connected to something higher. And that's also the connection of Yud K. There's a lot more to elaborate, and we didn't explain everything, but I think this is the message. The message of the 3 weeks, and the message of Parshas Pinchas is the Chiyuv. being able to proclaim loudly, I'm a Jew and I'm proud, and to promote Jewish consciousness, Jewish identity, all the more the better. And also how you treat every other Jew. That's how you cherish the Jewishness and Judaism and family, your brothers and sisters. And you know that there's a red line. And also we learn from this the shlila, the negativity, how we shouldn't act. And this is what's calling in Parshas Pinchas the connection, as we brought out from the Rashi, Hachinoichi. We see this point again, and the small Yud in Parshas Pinchas, because in this week's Parsha, according to all opinions, the Yud is added because we know that Pinchas did the right thing, and for this he was blessed with an added Yud to his name. The reason why it's small is because maybe just, I'm not sure, just to bring out that not everyone agrees with it, like we said in the beginning. But in any case, why in this week's Parsha, this is a famous word that was said many times, that when someone acts in a zealous way with Gvura, so we have to take a step back and see what were the motives. Does it come from a good place or not? I think we spoke about it. Another point that has to be brought out is it's brought down in Svarim that Pinchas is connected to Yitzchak. And Yitzchak is Din and Gvura, and they have the same gematria, 208. So Pinchas only with a Yud represents this idea of the same gematria as Yitzchak. Anyways, the Eibusher should help. We should realize that sometimes we have to take a stand and be like a Pinchas, but make sure that it's only coming from a good place out of Avas Yisrael, and the Dushchus of Avas Chinam will come to the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Yad Mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisborich, your man in Melbourne.